Well, welcome to the podcast Knifemaking Downunder. And we've got with us Mert Tansu and Corin Urquhart. And we're starting up this podcast so that we've got an avenue for Australian knife makers to have a say, get some input into what's going on, and, you know, get up to date with Australian knife making and Australian knife makers.
And have some fun.
And have some fun.
Talk some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
All right.
Good intro.
We did well there. Right. Next.
Well, there's a bit of work for Phil to do to cut that
out. All right.
Phil, don't fuck it up, man. Phil, don't fuck it up, please.
Yeah, it's your job, Phil.
So let's run through some introductions. Kev, you may as well go first. You're on a roll.
Yeah, righto. So I'm Kevin Slattery. I'm the founder of Kev's Forge. I've been making knives now for about 7 or 8 years, seriously for probably the last 3, I guess. I'm based in Canberra, Australia. I specialise, I guess, in hunting knives, although I'm starting to branch out a bit more into the chef knife industry and also starting with some folding knives, which is something different for me. I also teach classes from my workshop, so I've got a bit of a background in basic forging classes and kitchen knife classes. And that's about it for me. So I'll hand over to, let's say, Mert.
All right. My name is Mert Tansu. I make kitchen knives. I'm a former chef. I started making knives about 5 years ago. I wasn't happy with what I was buying as a collector back then, and I said how hard it could be. Let me just try to make knives. And that led into being a part-time job. First of all, hobby, then do part-time job. And as of last year, I've been a full-time knife maker. And I make kitchen knives. That's the only thing I know how to make. Yes, I'm based in Hunter Valley, near the vineyards. So that's all I got. Is that too short?
Did you mention about your history as an executive chef, where you're originally from, and about your time as a chef in America? And I mean, you could expand that a fair bit, or we can just talk about that later. It's your call.
Yeah.
Talk about it later.
I will. Yeah, talk about later.
Yeah. All right. So
what about you, Corin?
Right. So I started making knives in around about 2002, and under the name Niroc Knives. I've never been a hugely prolific maker, but I've always been heavily involved in promoting knife making and having workshops at my house and so forth, right through to about 2012, when a few of my friends said to me, Corin, it's time we had some knife making supplies in Australia. Would you bring in some steel? At the time, I was working for Gamaco, a gas equipment company, and we brought a lot of gear in from America. And so I started bringing in supplies. There's a fair bit of history there. I won't go into all of it. Basically, though, I enjoy these days making complicated or slightly tricky folding knives, historical folding knives called barrel knives, for which I'm fairly well known. I'm based in New South Wales, down in Picton, inland from Wollongong. And knife making is my passion. Heavily involved in the industry, in the Knife Art Association and the Knife Makers Guild.
Corin, how many knives you made so far? How many knives you made in the last year?
In the last year? Well, normally I make one a year. This year, and I want to be held to account here, this year I intend to make 2, which will double my output.
I was going to say, I thought you made 2 last year. I was going to say, like, mate, you're on fire. You doubled your production.
No, well, that's this year, hopefully, Mert. I wanted to make 2 last year, though, so to be fair, I only made 1. And but it did get published a few times, so I think I can claim that I make reasonable knives.
Yeah, they look great.
Yeah, it's a pretty good thing when you open up a magazine and see knives that your peers make, especially when the bastard only makes 1 a year, gets it in a magazine.
The secret, I can't claim the secret to that. The secret to that is no secret. You get your knives professionally photographed. Those guys can do amazing things in Photoshop. My knives are actually, they've got gaps like 1 millimeter wide, and they don't work and go together properly, but Photoshop sorts it all out, and away you go.
Yeah, I remember seeing the one that Sharp took for you, Corn. It was great. It was with the double blade.
That's correct.
He got, yeah, that was great.
And I just went to America this year and had 2 more taken. So I got a couple more pictures of knives that I'd made. So with a bit of luck, that may be popping up in magazines. I don't even know why I bother, because I get lots of inquiries to make knives for people and I just don't do it. So I don't know why I want to be published. I don't even know why I bother. But it's nice to be in a magazine. It's really nice to open them up and see, as you say, Kev, all your friends and colleagues who get published as well. And it's all about the photograph. There's no, I'm joking when I say like the knives aren't well put together, but it is about the photograph, and it's about having that high resolution, good quality snap that an editor can pick up and put in a magazine without thinking. So from that perspective, that's the way to go.
Yeah. Now, when I was over in America myself this year, we were talking about knife photography and photographers, and funny you should say about how they edit your pictures and everything to make them look, really good and whatnot. One of the things they said about the key photography guys is that they don't actually make your knives look better than they are, but they just present them in a way that, is good for magazine publishers. So if your knife looks crap and you get it taken by a professional photographer, it's still going to look crap, but presented nicely. So you've still got to have a good fit and finish on your blades, and they've still got to sort of stand out, catch the eye of those editors anyway.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, when you look at a high-resolution picture of a knife, it's like looking at a picture of your knife under a microscope, and the maker certainly can see every flaw and everything. Those photos hide nothing.
Yeah,
that's it.
Mert, you get your knives professionally photographed, or do you take them yourself?
I got recently professionally photographed by Sharp, by Jim Cooper. He's also known for Sharp by Coop. He got a couple of my knives pictured, and that was my first time. And when you see the pictures and you're thinking like all the time, all the knives that I made, I took very average pictures that doesn't do justice to the work you do. And you're thinking like, that's an investment that's well worth it. I was beating myself thinking I should have done it a long time ago, because I'm not the most gifted person in terms of photography, and I'm recently learning. Because if you look at my previous pictures from the couple of years before, like I'm just holding a knife, like just like Jeff Fader says, like knife in hand pictures. I got those mangled knife maker hands with the dirt and all that, and I'm holding a beautifully finished knife, and that just doesn't do it justice. So I've been taking my own pictures, but if I have something that I'm really proud of, and that's the way to go, I think, is just to send it to a professional photographer.
See,
and I'm really looking. Go ahead.
I was going to say I don't have that problem because I've got lovely manicured hands, office hands.
Yeah, well, I don't know. My hands are not the prettiest looking right now. But I'm also looking forward for the Sydney Knife Show, because Sharp is going to be there, and I have some knives that I'm planning to get him completed, and hopefully he'll take pictures while he's here in Australia, and hopefully they'll be published.
I understand he will be taking photos at the show, Mert. So, and I believe the Knife Art Association is subsidising the cost of those photos. So, you'll find that you'll save about 20 to 30% on what you would pay if you did it in America.
Plus you
don't have to get to America.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, is that?
Or ship it to US, and then they ship it to whoever is buying it, or back to you, whatever it works for you. But yeah, having him here is a great opportunity.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm definitely sold on the notion about professional photography. And I mean, you got to just look at the results of it. And like you said, if you want the best of your work to get out there and be seen, if that's what your aim is, or in Corin's case, not your aim, you got to get these guys to do it. That's what they do it for a living, and they're successful for a reason. And getting their stuff done, it can only contribute to your own success if that's what gets the exposure out there for people.
Yep, definitely.
Agreed. So speaking of the Sydney Knife Show, this podcast will probably come out depending on how we figure out how to upload it. And let's be patient, guys, because at the end of the day, we're fairly, let's put it bluntly, technologically fucked. But we're going to figure it out. And when we figure it out, it may be after the Sydney Knife Show. Look, yeah, let's have a chat about the Sydney Knife Show. What are our hopes and expectations? Have you guys got tables organised? What's going to be on your tables?
Well, all I know is I'm right next to Kevin Slattery. So for the second year in a row, we're having tables side by side.
There's nothing but trouble to come out of that, I tell you right now.
Yes, yes.
No, fair enough.
Mert, what's on your lineup, Mert? Some kitchen knives?
Some kitchen knives, yes. So what I do for the shows is I try to have let's say I want to bring 8 or 9 knives, and I try to make them in a way that it allows me to be on time without being too much under stress, because my first Sydney show was such a stressful time. I end up working like 16 hours, and I managed to put the last handle touches at 2 o'clock in the morning and put the suitcase together. I ended up driving to Sydney at 4 o'clock, and I didn't get my sleep. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to finish one a day for the last week, or maybe finish a knife in every other day. So at the end of just before the show, I have at least 8 knives, or maybe sometimes 10 knives. So it's not like a massive rush, but whatever I try, it always turns into a big rush. I'll be having some kitchen knives and see how they go. What do you plan, Kev?
I don't think anyone's in a different boat when it comes to a knife show where they're not pushing themselves that little extra bit towards the end of it. For me, well, I had a reasonably successful time over at Blade Show, so I've come, and I had an extended trip to the US. So I've come back a week ago with no knives. I think I might have 2 or 3 stashed away, which will come in handy, because then I might have 2 or 3 knives on my table at Sydney. But no, in all honesty, I've got a couple of, I'll have a few Damascus hunting knives and a few Sandmai stainless hunting knives, and
roll back. Sandmai stainless.
Yeah.
Is that your own forging, or you're using commercial product?
This I have my own here, but this one is actually some Takipu steel that I had, and I bought a lot of their steel over the last couple of years. I've never used it, so I thought I'd just have a crack at it, and it's kind of nice steel. I like it.
It gets very good
some
reviews.
small. Yeah, look, it's pretty easy to work with. Nice results out of it. Like I said, I've only come back from the US last week, so I've got more pressure on myself than I normally put on myself to get knives out, but I'm going okay. I've been in the workshop last few days, and seeing those results from the profiled knives. Now I've got them ground and sanded and etched, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. Although, as opposed to Mert's luxury with kitchen knives, when you just finish your hunting knives, you've also then got to think about a couple of days worth of making sheaths, which I've got planned for next week. So I might be up late Friday night before I head up to Sydney. We'll see how we go.
I think you will, because Corin, did you just notice Kevin broke the cardinal rule? He said he's doing okay for the knife show. Mate, you never say that. You never say that you're doing okay. You never say that. Well, what are you doing?
Let's ask him. Let's ask him again. Let's ask him again next Thursday. See what he says.
Ask me again. Right. Ask me again tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I'm kidding myself. I normally actually go to shows with a really good spread of knives. I'm normally able to take somewhere between 15 to 20 knives to a show. And I have to say, I think the reality checks come in this time. I'm highly motivated, having come back from the US and spent a bit of time with some really, really good knife makers over there. But, it's just sinking in, 2 weeks it's not a lot of time, but, I'll just do a few late nights and we'll be all right.
I love your attitude.
What about you? Yeah, that's it, man. What can you do? You just got to make what you can. Occasionally, you've just got to put some aside and readjust and say, righto, I'm not going to have 15 knives. I'll aim for 10. And if worst case scenario comes along and you go, I'm not going to have 10, I'll have 5. Just making the 5 best ones you can get out there.
Well, I totally agree, mate. It's quality over quantity sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mate, our show preparation is in a way it's a lot easier because, well, I don't do it anymore. I pay people to do it, which is heartening for me. But obviously we fill 30 odd tables with equipment. This year we're going to bring our show truck, which will take up a large portion of our booth and incorporate a whole bunch of our stock. And hopefully it'll be a big show. Gamaco feels very strongly about. So for those that didn't know, I'm not sure if I covered it in my intro, but I am the CEO of Gamaco, which is a specialist gas equipment company that sells knife making supplies. Under the banner Artisan Supplies, we feel very, very strongly about supporting Australian shows. So typically we will be the biggest exhibitor at any Australian knife show from two perspectives. Obviously it helps us so we can sell and all the rest of it, but it also helps the industry. And the aim here is to make sure that the knife shows are as big as they possibly can be and are well funded and supported. So to that end, we always make sure we're there and we're there in a big way. And we support everybody that comes along and supports our industry.
Yeah, it's a big draw. It's a big draw card.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people come to the shows around Australia just to pick up their steel and heavy items when we attend. Obviously, Sydney's home turf for us, but that's the case when we go elsewhere. People pick up their grinder or their kiln or whatever from the show, and they don't have to pay freight. Often get a discount so that we can have it as a display stock.
Corin, can you give some history about the Sydney Knife Show for those that they're not familiar with?
No.
How long it's been running and how it started and now the size of it? Can you give a little bit of history of the Sydney Knife Show?
Yeah, sure. The first Sydney Knife Show was held in a golf club somewhere in the 2000s, and sooner or later we'll interview somebody that was there who can fill us in. I think it was 2000, I'm going to say 7, but I don't know. Now, when I joined the industry and without raving on too much, I met a guy by the name of Keith Flutter pretty early on in the piece. Keith Flutter lives just down the road from me, and I went to we were actually having a knife making hammer in on the same day, on the same weekend, and that's how it sort of started. And I said, well, hang on, I don't want to have a hammer in on the day I want to be attending a hammer in. So in the end, we did a crossover where we had my people came to his hammer in on the Saturday, and his people came. Some of his came to my hammer in on the Sunday, and we had a great time and talked some shit. And that was really when I started talking about bulk buys. That was a turning point for us. That was when Gamaco sort of started to talk bulk buys. But anyway, back to the knife show. Keith came down to my place one day with a guy by the name of Wayne Saunders, top bloke. And we were in the shed, and I was saying, why don't we have a knife show in Sydney? Why do we have to go all the way to Melbourne? Keen as a bean, as I often am, and get a bee in my bonnet about something. And Keith said, we had one years ago, and it was shit. And I said, don't be like that. Why don't we have one and not make it shit? And Keith was like, quiet. He didn't say anything. And then a few days later, he rang me up, and he said, I've been thinking. He said, why don't we have one and not make it shit? And look, long story short, we held our first big knife show, Australia's first big knife show in 2014. And, that was where we cut our teeth. That's the show that started people talking and saying, well, what could be? Why go to America? Why not have a big show in Australia? So it took us a little while to get back on our feet after the first one. But we did, and in 2016, we started the Knife Art Association to run the shows. It was, it was decided. Keith and I made the call early on that we weren't going to do it for personal gain. We were going to do it for our industry, and we would invite anybody that was like-minded and wanted to be an industry supporter and didn't want to get anything in return to join our association, which would then run events. And so the Knife Art Association's never been a huge association and never will be. You can go online and have a look at what's involved in joining, and we stipulate a few things there that, put a lot of people off, frankly. But obviously it doesn't put off the people that are willing to do the job, run events. So in 2016, we had another one. We moved the event to Rose Hill Gardens. And it's just been up and up since then. Been an absolutely fantastic event. It grows every year. And it does. I think it does more it's done more for knife making in Australia than just about anything else, because of the huge amount of promotion that goes into it, the amount of money every year that's returned to the industry in the way of promotion, radio advertising, print advertising. At the present time, there's a 17 metre, it's about that long, a huge billboard on James Roos Drive advertising the show. So every driver that's going past it this month will see the big banner and will know the show's on. So, no other organisation puts in as much as we do into the promotion. So you'll find that the Sydney Knife Show is an expensive show from the perspective of the exhibitors, and probably it's $15 for entry for the punter. But all the money that's generated is used to go back into the industry and has then been used to fund and build other shows. So Perth Knife Show, Brisbane Knife Show, and obviously the Blade Symposium. So the other jewel in the Knife Art Association crown.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of history.
That's it. Yeah, I've got mixed reservations about that first Sydney Knife Show at Everleigh anyway too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a turning point in my life. You wouldn't believe it. That's where I first met this big ugly mug, 6'2" Turkish fella named Mert.
First of all, 6'4", asshole.
He's on his platform shoes again. Yeah, no, that was funny actually. I think back to that, and I did honestly meet Mert there, and now look where we're at. Fucking good mates, traveling around the friggin' world with knife shows. That's one of those things where, for me in particular, I look back and I think I led a pretty boring life prior to knife making with regards to work and that. I just worked in an office, did my job, came home, that was that. Then when I got involved in the knife making, you start to travel a little bit, meet people and broaden your horizons. And then, like I said, now a few years on, travelled the world, been to Blade Show a couple of times, been over to Japan. Plans are probably New Zealand at some point to do their show. But yeah, it's amazing, and just meeting all these people that, some of these talented guys over in America, and then you actually get a chance to have a chat with them, and they're so freaking grounded, they're just normal people that make really cool stuff. So yeah, and that's I guess another part of it when you look at the effort that we put into getting these shows off the ground, and then people come along and get a table and then start that first sort of introduction into the knife community on that face-to-face level. Man, that thing it plants the seeds. It plants that seed where you just, shit's going to happen and you're not going to believe it.
No, I totally agree, mate. The knife making, my life, like I've worked an office job, and knife making was my hobby and my passion prior to 2013. 2013, it became a huge distraction in my business life, whilst I tried to feed an ever-growing market that was clamouring for more, and just being the only bloke in the business interested in having a go. And then we hit a point where sort of sales justified putting people on to help manage the problem, and it became not so much of a problem and more of an embrace part of the company. But that was a hell of a learning curve for us, going from what we are, which is an import distributor. We sell business to business. We're a wholesaler, to a import to end user, which was dealing with the end users' inquiries and problems and all the rest of it. That typically there was a barrier in the way, being our distributors. So knife making changed our business considerably. But going back to travelling around the world, I have to agree, mate. I've been to Blade twice now, and Japan, and I'm going over to the knife shows in Paris in September, and yeah, frankly, it's been a blast. I turned a passion into a problem for me at first, but now that things are settling down and it's become more of a management thing, then it's really just a lovely industry, and the people in it is what makes it. I can't stress that enough. There's so many great people in the knife making industry in Australia.
Well, my path was a little bit different than you guys, because my knife making was a hobby for me. I come from a different crazy background, because when you work in the kitchens or hospitality, that's another crazy industry. You don't see many normal people working in the hospitality, or the normal ones don't last too long in hospitality. So knife making was a hobby for me, and I was thinking, I'm going to make myself a knife that I want to use for myself, and that's it. That's what meant to be. And probably 6 years ago, I took a class with Keith Flutter. But on my way coming back from Keith, I knew this was going to be turning into something more than just being hobby. And the best thing about knives is, compared to kitchen, is when the knives don't call out sick, the knives don't complain saying that you hurt their feelings. And trust me, I hit the knives with the hammer. And apprentices, I wasn't even raising my voice. So knives are a lot better in that regard.
Yeah, that's it.
I've said many times, there's nothing better than a quick forge after a hard day at work, a stressful day in the office. You come home, beat the living bejesus out of a piece of hot steel, and before you know it, you're relaxed, calm, cool, collected, and you're the best person you can be.
Yeah, I used to see the apprentice's face on the envelope for a long time, like, fuck you, Jared, fuck you, Jared, fuck you, Jared. His name is Jared, by the way. I'm sure he'll listen to this podcast.
Pleased to meet you, Jared. Hope you're feeling the love.
When I run the classes, if people aren't hitting the thing hard enough, I tell them, picture someone that's given you the shits over the last few days at work, and they're that bit of steel now. Fucking hit it. And sometimes, mate, the people, I go, whoa, pull it back a little bit.
That's the face of my anvil. Go easy on it.
It really does make a difference, though, when you're hitting with the right amount of force. The metal actually moves. So a lot of you see it all the time. A lot of beginners are just tickling the steel, and they're heat after heat after heat to do a quick job, where a few quick bashes, heavy ones, would move the metal a lot faster.
Yeah. Scale, the flakes of scale coming off sometimes move faster than the hammer.
So yeah, but picturing somebody on the anvil is a great suggestion. So on the thing here today, I was kind of thinking we might just give our listeners a little bit of a history, because people often think that Australian knife making began, recently. That's a recent thing. And, I think it's important that we recognise that knife making's been going on in Australia, for a considerable amount of time. In fact, the oldest ground axe, so not napped or flaked or forged, but ground, is a stone axe that was found in the Kimberley region of Australia, and it dates something like 40,000 years. Don't quote me, but it's a hell of a long time. And from the Aboriginal people that were living here before. And, it makes me wonder, guys, why is knife making and knives such a big thing in some people's heads? So I thought about this for a little while, and I came up with the theory, and just call it a theory, that, if you take a bird, and you take the bird's egg and you put it in an incubator and you hatch the bird, right? Now you put that bird in an aviary with some twigs and sticks, and it'll still build a nest. Birds have been making nests for something like, 10 million years. The oldest found stone tool that's been date verified is something like 3.5 million years. And I'm wondering, is it in our DNA to make knives?
Well, that's what separates humans from the other creatures, that we make tools, and what better tool to make than something that can cut things in, right?
Well, I'm I'm a knife man. I hear you loud and clear. Yeah. But it's an interesting thing, worthy of consideration. Like if you took a human and raised them in an incubator away from everyone else, like Truman Show style, would they still be interested in knives?
I reckon they would.
I think so.
There's certainly a lot of people here that are, and so along came the white man in Australia and the European settlement, and knife making's been a pretty strong tradition all through the war years with Greg Steel and other companies of which I'm no expert, but we might have a section on that in the future talking about early Australian knife makers, which will no doubt incorporate the extensive work and research that's been compiled and put into books and publications by Keith and Joan Spencer, who used to run AKC, Australian Knife Club. You'd remember them guys? Maybe before your time, Mert?
Before my time, definitely.
Yeah, but back in the day, as Kev will attest, there was nowhere to buy knife making supplies in Australia except for Australian Knife Supplies, Australian Knife Collectors or Knife Club. AKC was the website. That's correct, Nev. Kev?
Yeah, pretty much, mate. Yep.
So
outside of those guys, it was coil springs and leaf springs, and that was about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about reused steel because that is something dear to my heart. I started on those materials for the simple reason was you really couldn't, unless you wanted to buy tons and tons. There was nowhere really, or sheets. There was nowhere really to buy steel. So I cut my teeth on recycled steels and learned a lot doing so. But that's probably a discussion for another day. You use recycled steels, Kev?
When I first started, I did, yeah. I just, to learn how to, one of those things like we were talking about just before, to learn how to move steel. Nothing better to go and get a piece of coil spring and try and hammer it into a square, and then try and hammer the square into a rectangle, and then try and hammer the rectangle into a boomerang-looking knife thing. Because realistically, when I first started, I had no idea why steel was moving where it did, and the outcomes of it were just, I had a lot of organic knives when I first started because that's just the way the steel moved. And then you progressively learn where to hit the steel to make it do what you want, and that makes things a hell of a lot easier. And, like you were just saying, there wasn't much option other than that when I was first starting out, unless you, had a friend that had some steel that you could maybe buy off them, and even then you never really knew what you were getting. I guess the benefit that a lot of the guys have these days is they can go to you or one of the other suppliers around, or Gamaco or Creative Man, or one of the overseas mobs if they want to, and they can buy a piece of steel pretty cheap, like 1075 or 1084, and make something that they know is going to come out good in the end, in terms of heat treating and all the rest of it. So I think in the last sort of 5 years or so, that access to better steel and it's cheap given the amount of money we spend on other stuff in knife making. There's sort of a less of a reliance on that recycled stuff.
Yeah, agreed. And we see a lot of recycled knives now, and there's basically two kinds of recycled steel knife maker. There's those that are just going for the heat till cherry red and go for the quench and hope for the best. And there's those that sort of pay a lot of attention to their heat treat. And like when we started, my friend Adam Coombe and I, we couldn't get steel. It was a nightmare. In hindsight, it was a nightmare. At the time, it was fine. Like, steel, we're getting steel for free. But what we had to do was to find a consistent source of the same steel. We'd then work out, and we'd spend a day heat treating it different ways, and we had no proper test equipment, so we'd hammer it, hit it, cut, make a blade and hit it through a piece of steel, and all sorts of really arbitrary tests, snap the blade, just to try and test our heat treat. And once we knew it, we'd write it down, and if we could get that steel consistently, then we'd use the heat treat that we tested, and we learned a hell of a lot doing that. That was me and a particular friend of mine, Adam Coombe, who joined me early on in my knife making journey. But there's others. The other side of that coin is the guys that get regular supply of scrap steel and then have it spectro-analysed. So they send it away to a laboratory and get it analysed. They know the exact composition and therefore know how to heat treat it. And so I've seen. I know, Mert, you have some supply like that.
Yeah, only recycled steel. I don't use much recycled steel, but only recycled steel I used was the ball bearings, large ones coming from the excavator from the mines, and they were tested. But other than that, as you said, Corin, you spend that much time. If you don't know what the composition of the steel is, you're treating steel as if, let's say, you have something that's sold as a spring steel, but doesn't have the same carbon or has more carbon than you assume or you think. Then you have to use the right quenching medium. You have to use the right forging temperatures, and there's so many variables. And by the time you know how to treat the steel, the next batch might be completely different. That's why I think, as we keep saying, it's cheapest thing in knife making is the steel. You're not saving much from steel, but as I said, the only thing I will use as a recycled is getting those ball bearings and get them analyzed. So I'm making sure they're 50 to 100, not just something that's case hardened. So you know what you have in your hand.
Yeah, there's a history thing there as well. You said you don't know the composition, and that's often true. The other thing is you don't know the history. So if a leaf spring, for example, you don't know what abuse it's been put through. I'm not saying not do it. By all means, do it. I mean, I'll do it myself. But, you take it with a grain of salt and with what you know. And don't pretend it's something it's not. That's, it's something that really, really gets my goat is seeing people say, oh, here's a knife I made out of L6. If you want to piss me off, mate, you just go right ahead and tell me you've made an L6 knife. I know where every bar of L6 has gone in Australia, and if you're not one of them, I don't reckon it's L6. But anyway, that's everyone's got their personal gripes, so we'll. And that's just happens to be one of mine.
What we see nowadays is like a lot of the guys are getting in the knife making scene, and most of the guys who are working in, like, let's say they work in a mine or they work in some kind of metal work, and they have access to tools, or they're given scrap steel, or they're given steel that's from the equipment. Let's say somebody's using a steel that's not good for the intended use, and all of a sudden these guys have, let's say, guillotine blades, or these high-speed steels, or these steels that they've been only case hardened, and they're good for their intended purpose as for example, to cut sheets of paper or whatever work machinery they perform in. But all of a sudden, these blades, these steels, are being turned into a knife. Then you have the problems like, oh, I made a knife, I just brought the steel to cherry, or just heat it up, and then I quenched it in the vegetable oil, or in some cases they're just cutting with the angle grinder, shaping and saying, hey, this is a knife I made. And you don't know how that's going to perform because it's a mysterious steel with the probably less than optimal heat treatment.
Yeah, that's exactly what it comes down to. So yeah, there's no gripes there. It is what it is, and it's a legitimate form of knife making. But yeah, no, steel is not expensive really in the scheme of knife making.
Exactly.
So gents, let's have a little bit of a few words about social media and knife making. What platforms do you guys use?
I've got a Facebook page which I update probably about as 25% of the time that I would update my Instagram. Facebook, as a lot of people have discovered, with their dislike of sharp objects.
You mean weapons? Yeah, as they stated?
Yeah, pretty much calling everything that's got an edge on it a weapon.
No, that's not fair, Kev. That's not fair at all, mate. I can't even sell Corby bolts because they're a weapon.
Yeah,
they don't have an edge.
Yeah,
mate.
True. Yeah, no, exactly. That's I know. I've put up stuff on Facebook and had it rejected, and gone red in the face over the whole thing, arguing the point. Now I just don't even bother. So my preferred social media platform is Instagram. I've got a LinkedIn account which I've put the first post on a couple of days ago, actually. I'm not real sure about LinkedIn at the moment, but it could be all right. Wait and see. But yeah, look, Instagram, even though it's changed and evolved, sometimes not for the better, depending on who you ask. It's definitely the platform at the moment where you get the most interaction with people, and it's the one which I look at the most, and it's the one which I, realistically, I've made some pretty good friends through just communicating through Instagram, and I think it's the one that I'll stick with as long as it's around. Obviously, there's new social media things coming up every now and then, and you've got to have a look at them, because if you don't, you might miss out on the next big thing.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And you hear about, there's one come up the other month, WeMe or something, and other things come up, and I take a look, but I find it hard to stray past the Facebook and Instagram duo, which is obviously owned by the same organisation. So, yeah. And you, Mert?
Yeah, same here, Corin. I use Instagram for business purposes. All the knives I make, or the work in progress shots and all that. But it's easier to engage in Instagram. It's easier to market on Instagram. I don't use Facebook as much, but what I've done is I link my Instagram page to the Facebook page. So whatever I post on my Instagram page, unless it has a video and the picture same time, it will be posted to my Facebook, because that way I don't have to double up. That way all I have to do is just post once on Instagram, then I have to monitor the engagement, see if people are asking questions, if there's a feedback in it. But also I use Facebook as well. But what happens is once you're starting to talk to people on Instagram quite a bit, then they start adding you as a friend on Facebook. Then you talk to them more, you see them more as a person than the knife maker himself. But mostly my interactions are on Instagram as well.
Yeah, fair enough. For me personally, I love Instagram as the place to be. For the company, for Gamaco, it's Facebook, because of the huge amount of social interaction and asking questions, commenting, and that sort of thing that goes on the Facebook network groups, Australian Blacksmiths, Bladesmiths, and Knife Makers, and so on. And those. For me, that's a good thing, because we like to sort of, support the industry and provide that sort of backup and be there for the industry. Yeah. But it's different on Instagram. Instagram is about looking at the picture first and foremost, and then secondary to that's the business side of things, particularly for a knife maker. A guy's going to contact you, or a customer's going to contact you because they like the picture, and that customer could be following a hashtag in Timbuktu, and you can get business out of that. So I see it from a knife maker's perspective how Instagram is a better option, really.
What's your Instagram account, Corin?
Niroc at Gamaco. So my name backwards, NIROC, dash or underscore at underscore or dash Gamaco.
What about yours, Kev?
Yeah, mine is Kev's Forge. So nice and easy, Kev's Forge.
All right.
And you, Matt?
I am Tensu Knives on Instagram.
Very good. One of the things I did was on Facebook was I created a second page. I had my Kev's Forge page there, where everything went on, and then through their absurd rules, cutlery or kitchen knives aren't seen as bad as the rest of them. So I actually created a Kevin Slattery custom cutlery page where I only put on kitchen knives. So in the rare chance that I want to try and promote something, I've got slightly more chance of actually getting an ad put through. I haven't done much on the business side of the Instagram. I signed up to the business page, but I've done bugger all with it. I look at the insights every now and then, but, I'm one of these people, I guess, I spend more time in my workshop, with my head sort of, in front of the grinder or hand sanding and all that sort of stuff than I do jumping on Instagram. And when I do jump on Instagram, it's normally the end of the day and I really couldn't be fucked. I want to double tap, like some knives and not think about things too much. So probably bad in that business sense that I don't explore those things, but, more time in the workshop leads to more productivity and then hopefully more sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Facebook can be such actually Instagram, social media in general can be such a drain on time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, with your guys, or the Gamaco guys, I'd imagine it would take up a lot of their business day, the ones in the administrative roles, just fucking maintaining all the shit that's going on with those Facebook pages. And, the benefit out of that, obviously, is you guys get the customers from it. But I see some guys on social media and I'm like, how do you do this? I wanted to, Mert and I both talked about it a while ago, doing some more live feeds and linking up together on there and, just trying to get out there a little bit more, I guess, show people what we're getting up to. And when the reality sets in of, like, just setting that time aside and everything else, it's too fucking hard.
It is also becoming like you have to, it's not just enough to post what you're doing because people want to know you, and then you're getting into different stage. Like you're providing content, you're showing what you're doing, and then again, as you said, Kev, that needs a lot of time. And I don't envy those guys like Alex Teal who are constantly providing content, like taking videos, constantly showing what they're doing. Like, we've done a couple live videos, and that was epic, but it wasn't as easy as we thought it'll be.
Oh yeah, that's it.
It's.
I think we're due for another live feed, Kev. What do you think?
maybe when we're not sharing a motel room together.
Yes. Maybe when I'm not in the bed trying to sleep and you're trying to sneak in.
Yeah, that kind of got me famous for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
You better fill us in, guys.
Yeah,
I think I missed that one.
Backstory: Queensland Brisbane Live Show. We're staying in the same motel and we've done a live feed. It was great, but I was just sleepy, and I'm like, yeah, you keep doing it, man. I'm going to bed, and I slept like within a minute. I'm done. I'm gone. I'm sleeping, and all of a sudden, I open my eyes. This motherfucker has his phone in his hand. Like, oh, here's Mert. He's sleeping. I'm like, leave me fucking alone, man.
Actually, what happened on that was when Mert stood up and went, I'm going to bed, which is pretty much what he said. He literally went and laid down and he was snoring within about, I'd say 20 seconds. And the live feed was still going for me. So I think I had it was late and we were drunk. So the audience were, I think we had about 6.
Drunk at a night
I think
show.
we had about, yeah, I know. I think we had about 6 people looking at the live feed at that stage. So I took a poll and I said, should I or should I not give Mert a cuddle? And it came back unanimous. I think I got, 6 voters said, yes, go and give Mert a cuddle. So I did it live feed Mert cuddle. And I got to admit, I feared for my life for that first 3 seconds that Mert opened his eyes up. he wakes up in a strange hotel room with me over the top of him.
On live feed.
I strategically locked the blankets down so that he couldn't get an arm out and punch me. But I've had a lot of people contact me about that. They said it was pretty funny.
A lot of people.
I thought
it was only 6.
Yeah, I think more people saw it afterwards.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Fair call.
Yeah. Yeah. So something about at the moment about knife shows and that close proximity to Mert Tansu that worries me a little bit.
Yeah, you should be worried.
I think it's probably worth going back to the social media. Just before we leave that, though, I just want to do a bit of a quick shout out for Australian Blade Forums, because before Facebook, before Instagram, those guys pulled together Australian Knife Makers. So, it's still a relevant forum. It's still happening, and there's still a lot of information on there. So, we should recognise them and if you haven't checked out Australian Blade forums, definitely get on there and check them out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where I first got. Kind of forgot about it because of, like you said, that instant social media, Instagram takeover thing. But yeah, you're right. I think there were a lot more custom makers on there before things like Instagram and stuff became, the popularity or the popular side of things. But yeah, it's still got, like I said, the information's still there. The guys are still kicking along.
Yeah, Gamaco Artisan Supplies would not exist without them. So, for me personally, it's important to recognise the effort that those guys put into and still continue to put into the Australian knife industry as well. So, it's not dead. There's a lot of posts still up there, and it's worth a check out for anyone in Australia if you haven't been there already.
I remember those bulk buy posts when I first got in the knife making scene, like about 6 years ago, watching those threads and the bulk buys, and you saying, hey, I'm doing a bulk buy of this, and people jumping on it. And because back then, as you said, Corn, things weren't as available, like the knowledge wasn't as available, the tools weren't as available. So it's good to check, actually. Just when you look at those posts, you appreciate what you have more, actually, nowadays.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I went back for... Someone was writing a news article or an article about me personally for a French magazine, and they asked me all these questions. I had to go and find links to those sort of early day posts, and I went through and found them, and it was just, wow, flashback. Me and 7 friends have got this order of steel together. We're going to buy from the USA. Who wants in? Thinking that was going to be big. And yeah, I thought nobody'd ever want steel again after we brought that order in. There was 1 ton of steel on the first order, and I thought,
Ooh.
fuck, how many knives is in 1 ton of steel? Like realistically, a shit ton, right? So I'm thinking, how on earth can anybody ever want any more steel? And then obviously, within a few months, we were running the 2nd bulk buy, the 3rd bulk buy, the 4th bulk buy, and it just went on and on and on. And people were contacting me, I want a grinder, I want a kiln, and I'll be honest with you guys. I wouldn't tell anyone else this, but you guys I'll be honest with. I was pretty much just bringing in stuff I wanted for myself. And that's how it started, right? I wouldn't mind a good pair of tongs. So, sure, how many do I have to buy? 700 pairs. Oh, all right, let's do that. I'll try and sell them. That's pretty much how it all began. But
but I bet you that, buddy, there was a big handful of us that also looked at the same thing and went, how many tongs do I have to get in? 700. No, fuck that.
Yeah, well, see, for me it was a little bit easier because I was using Gamaco's money. So I don't own Gamaco. I have a share in Gamaco. At that time, I wasn't even in management. I was a technical salesperson, and I had director approval to bring in a few shipments, and I was just making the most of what I could and seeing how far I could push the boundaries. As it turned out, fairly well for everyone. So, the company,
reward for the risk.
Yeah, exactly. So,
one of the things I always think back to with your group buy stuff is how many fucking ton of G10 is still out there.
I can tell you now, off that first bulk buy of G10. Tom Millick, if you're out there, give us a wave. Tom Millick made that buy possible by buying enough to see him through to his death. I think he is sitting on a monopoly of G10 in Tasmania, and to this day he perhaps has more stock than I do. But good shout out to all the people that supported that. It was so much fun. It really was so much fun. I was working overtime, unpaid overtime. I was working weekends. I didn't see my family for like the first 18 months of it. And, it was a huge personal toll. And then, at first everyone was great because everyone knew, like everyone was fine. But then you started around a year in, people were starting to bitch. Oh, why don't you have this in stock? Why don't you have that in stock? Why don't you do this and that? And it's like, well, fucking hang about. I'm not getting paid any extra for this. I'm getting, make no bones about it. I got a good grinder and I got a kiln, but I'm not getting, this is my personal time, my family time. And to see people bitching on Facebook that I wasn't open on a Saturday, It used to just drive me batshit, and that's coming back to what you said before, Kev. Dealing with those comments and the people that rather than contact you directly and have a problem, they just want to get out on and just have their piece on social media about how much of a prick you are. And I'm good with that. I'm good with that if that's the way you want to be. But fuck off. Buy somewhere else. I don't want your business. I don't need your business. Just fuck off now. I mean, at the end of the day, and I got a lot of customers that'll testify to the fact that we don't get everything right. In fact, our error rate in any other business probably be unacceptable. However, we do our best and we stand by everything we sell, and we're always there to fix our fuck-ups. And you'll often do better out of it. If you're just polite and nice, you'll probably end up in a better position than you would have been if you just want to get on there and complain. And there's many examples where people have come on and said, I sent you a message 3 days ago and you've come back, you haven't responded. This has happened a few times, and I go back. This is on social media, and I go back in public and say, well, I just checked. Your message came through on Friday after lunch, and we don't work on the weekend. It's now Sunday afternoon, and no one's responded because we're not at work. And it's like,
you're not open, yeah.
Yeah, wake the fuck up to yourself, Anyway, that's my rant.
Yeah, it's a funny thing though. Like when you're talking about that, you've got a shop front that people know of. You've got your web presence with your store and everything else, and people have that expectation that you're going to be there 24/7. But I have the same thing. I had to go onto my Facebook page and actually put in start and stop hours so that Facebook didn't keep reminding me how shit I was about getting back to people, because I'd be getting people the same thing, sending me a custom knife request at fucking 11:15 at midnight. Maybe they saw I was on Facebook because I'm a bit of a night owl and, sit up and have a glass of wine and watch shit TV and look at Facebook because I've got nothing better to do. But I'd say the same thing, people getting upset because I didn't get back to them, and yet they send me a fucking request to make a knife at, midnight or 2:00 in the morning. And these are Australians, mind you, not even from overseas. And they're getting upset because you don't get back to them within 5 minutes. And it's like, I was asleep then. And I've got a family, and occasionally I need to spend time with them. And the other thing is, like I said, I don't look at social media many times during the day because I'm generally working, and it's that compromise between being a slave to social media and emails and everything else. I'll just hit them up at the end of the day.
Oh, it's so true, mate, and it's the immediacy that expectation, and I find it truly hilarious that back in the days when we started, people waited 4 fucking months for that first shipment of steel, and were patient and good-natured and happy that we were doing it, and now like you're a couple of days late and the world turns to shit. And I get it, but it's not bad. It could be better, but it's been worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I certainly fucking hate, Kev? I'm sure you get it as well every now and then. Like somebody asks you a question, and let's say you check your phone, like you're in the middle of work, or you check it at night and thinking, I'll respond tomorrow. And after a couple hours, they send you a question marks like, oh, sorry, so I didn't respond to you. Let me just transfer your requisition to fucking call department, to our call center.
I get that too. Yeah, no. So, and it's funny, I'm running the business now, and I'm, as I say, CEO of a company. We employ 50 people. I'm not trying to big note myself, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of what I do. I've got 4 warehouses in Australia and New Zealand, and people still send me a PM or a text message to give them a quote on their piece of G10 or something, and it's like, I always try and help people out. You guys know I will, but guys, I got a team there. They're willing to help you, and it'd be really good if people went through that avenue first. Of course, I'm always there. If there's a problem, don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm all about making things better. I don't want anyone to be an unhappy customer.
So let's take the opportunity. Who have you got on board now for people to contact?
Well, there's Cole Barrett, first point of call there.
Yep.
You got Joe Brunetta. We've got Phil Marks, and we've got Rob Morton. And if all else fails, we employ a couple of other knife makers as well, and including Tim Ford, who works out in the warehouse for us. So we've got there's plenty of options there, and these guys are really good guys. Cole.
Yeah, so I deal with Cole. I deal with Cole primarily for all of my inquiries. I've been trained well, let's say. But I know Cole's the source because I deal with you guys a lot, and we chat outside of work a fair bit anyway. So I always go straight to Cole. And like you said, man, he's a busy fella, but he'll get back to you pretty much straight away or as soon as you possibly can.
Yep.
Phil's the same. Phil's in there. Joe's learning the ropes pretty well too. So
yeah,
your admin guy.
Joe's been making knives for a long time, and he won't blow his own trumpet. He's a shy, considered sort of a guy, but I got a lot of time for Joe. I've known Joe for probably 10 years or something. He's a top bloke.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something. Just obviously, if people are listening to this, they can now know that they've got to go through Cole or Phil or Joe first of all, or just send a message through one of the Facebook groups. That's the other thing.
Yeah, that's it. All through the page, the guys get back to it, and don't expect us to respond on weekends because you'll be sadly fucking disappointed.
Oh yeah.
That's it. That's what we are. We're an importer first and foremost, and we don't have a retail shop here. People do drop in, but you won't see a lot. The warehouse is a very full place, and it's not really a safe place to be entertaining customers. So. Yeah, warehouse tours aren't real common. You don't normally get past the front counter, but yeah, we stock a lot of stuff here. We've got a lot of knife making.
I just walk straight through your front counter now.
Yeah, but that's because you're a prick. But I'll get you trained. It'll just take some more of those food rewards.
Little doggy treats
and a rolled up newspaper. Yeah, we'll get it sorted. No, it's all good, mate, and that's just the nature of the business, and it is what it is. It's important to note that the gas industry is still 90% of this business. So,
when you're dealing with gas parts that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you've got some bloke arcing up because he's bloody 20-cent piece of whatever hasn't come in, it's a bit of perspective needed.
Yeah, but don't ever think that person whose 20-cent item isn't as important to me as the guys who place the $500,000 order. Everybody's important to this business, and that's the culture of this place, and that's the way I want it to be. That's the way the directors want it to be. So, and the owners. So I run it that way, and I'm not, but I don't want to belittle any sale, and I know you weren't, but I just want to make that clear,
Yeah, no, fair enough too.
So, yeah, no, it's been an interesting ride, interesting roller coaster.
It has been the highs and the lows on that side of it. When I first left my office job, which is a few years ago now, I had a few people say things along the lines of, "Oh, why don't you become a supplier of knife parts, Kev? Why don't you do that?" And I got to say, my answer, in all honesty and quite bluntly, was "fuck that."
Yeah, well, it's an interesting game. There are basically two suppliers in Australia. There's me and a good friend of mine, Bjorn, who runs the Creative Man. And Bjorn's known me for, I don't know, 15 years or 10 years at least. And we were on, he was coming to all my hammer-ins back in the day when I was running those at my house. And really super supportive. Used to come down and use my forge, and we just haven't got together for a long time. But yeah, good guy, and he's doing his thing for the industry. And most importantly, you'll see he supports the industry as well. So he's out there giving away stuff and running competitions and whatever else, and just doing his bit to promote what the Australian knife making industry is all about. So, all power to it. I welcome competition. It's not something we're afraid of. We hope that it drives everybody to a better place, and it hopefully also stops people saying that I've developed some sort of fucking monopoly.
Well, people also have to.
I'm the only person who's done it, so that makes me a monopoly. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah. Well, people also have to understand, like, yes, there's a demand for knife making stuff in Australia, but it's not like we're the US. US, there's so many makers, and it's not very feasible to bring tons of steel. Like, that's why there's not that many people are doing it.
The US.
It's not. Yeah. It's not like you're trying to be monopoly and cartel and nobody else has it. It's just the demand is there, but it's not warrant another big company existing. It's not like US. There's like the East Coast, and there's the guys on the West side buying from for example, Texas, and the guys buying on the East Coast buying from the more on the East Coast.
I never thought, Mert.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd fucking hear the day when you would be telling me that I don't run a cartel.
Yeah, look.
What was it you used to call me? What did you used to call me, Mert?
Okay. Let me back. So for those who don't know the backstory, I call Corin cartel because he's the biggest supplier of knife making goods in Australia. That's why I keep calling cartel El Chapo or what else?
Oh, what was his name?
In those lines.
Yeah, the Colombian drug dealer dude. Yeah.
Escobar.
Yeah, that's the one.
Escobar.
Yeah. Escobar. Mert's been calling me Escobar for about a year, and it's a bit of a chuckle. Yeah, the guys here bought me at the office bought me a Monopoly Man shirt to go with it. So, anyway, it's a bit of a laugh.
That was funny.
Yeah, and that sort of thing pops up on social media from people that just blowing. Like, this is literally, it's great that they're coming into the industry and so forth, but, before they get up on social media and say their piece, they probably want to look at the history. I mean, just for a few minutes and do a bit of Googling and understand that, we do our best. I can't do any better. Yeah.
True.
Anyway, enough about me. So, what's your next travel plans, Kev?
Sydney.
Sydney.
At the moment, my travel plans for knife making, apart from Australian shows, is limited to Blade Show, because I go over to Blade, I do Blade Show, and then I go and hang out with Bill Burke and another bunch of Aussies, and we go and travel around and do some crazy stuff up north in America. And that's generally, my general travel plans over there about at least a month. And it's not cheap. And knife making, unfortunately, at this stage of my career, is not making me millions of dollars. So, I've got to try and prioritize for that. And Blade Show, I just like it, and I think if I'm going to go overseas for a knife-related event, I think at the moment I'm going to stick with that. I've been there twice, and the networks that I've started to create, the guys that I've met, and not even networks, the friends that I've made over there, that have invited me to go and stay at their workshops and do stuff with them outside of what I'm already doing. I could probably go over there and do a 6-month trip around and not be bored any day of that time.
Yeah, it's quite incredible how welcoming people are actually over there, and I can't agree with you more, mate. I've been there the same 2 years you have, and it's just phenomenal. That the area that known as the Pit, it's a dangerous place, old mate.
And this year especially, this year was last year was good. And a lot of the guys, like regulars over at Blade Show, sort of commented that it wasn't a great show in terms of numbers through the doors and all that sort of stuff. I was still blown away. This year, I don't know if you got the same sort of feeling, but this year, it just seemed almost chaotic at times. It was that busy. But it was so awesome. One of the key things for me this year as well, it was so awesome to see more Aussies there, and more of the, I guess the known knife maker community. Jackson Rumble was over there and got his journeyman smith and won the Kiesler Award. We're just talking about Bjorn and Sausage Man, Jamie Bishop.
Yeah,
Jamie Bishop.
And it's funny over there. Like Jamie's known as Sausage Man over there. Like there were so many people acknowledging him as Sausage Man that it was kind of funny.
Yeah, wasn't it Jeff
Fader
who Fader Knives who
Yeah,
from
Jeff
Knife
Fader.
Talk podcast who collared him and said, "Hey, Sausage Man."
Yeah. So Jamie got in touch with me, saying that this Jeff Fader fellow was stalking him. And I'm like, no, you could be stalked by worse people.
I haven't met Jeff.
So
yeah.
Oh yeah, no, he was there this year. He was there only for a brief period.
Yeah,
but
just picking up
really good bloke.
material.
He's one of the guys that I met just chatting through Instagram, years ago. Just break that comfort cycle and comment on a post and then whatever. And last year we actually met face to face, which is, really fucking cool. And the same things happen with, a number of guys over there as well. They're really humble people when you actually step in front of them and shake their hand. And like I said, it's just so cool to see that big Aussie contingency over there this year, making our mark, really, I guess.
Oh, that's it, mate. That's it. We overtook the South Africans down there. Here's a shout out to Henning.
Henning, you bastard.
You bastard. Yeah, sorry, that was a terrible rendition of a South African accent. But if you ever meet Henning, he'll fix that. What's his Instagram? Do you know it off the top of your head?
Henning Wilkinson.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Henning.
I'll look it up. Henning.
Yes.
Henning was a great guy. First time I'd met him, I'd known Stuart, Anthony Smith, and Niels Vanderberg for many, many years. Since my very first days on Facebook, those guys and I had been talking. We were both into the same types of knives, and been friends for a very long time. But Henning, I was new to me. I'd never followed Henning. Making knives for God's glory, I think, is his slogan. And it's Henning. Yeah, Henning Wilkinson, one word. There we go. And frankly, his work was outstanding, beautiful.
Yeah, like a lot of the guys from South Africa, his work is fucking great. Like when you see him in person, you can't pick on it. It's good.
No, absolutely, mate, absolutely. I saw his work and thought when I met him, I thought, he's just a big goofy, funny guy. But no, he's a super talented maker. Yeah, don't make any mistakes there. So yeah, that's our first awkward silence, fellas.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
You talking about me, you bastard? Yeah, bro.
So for me,
this year I did the most traveling in terms of knife shows, but I have Sydney coming up. I will consider Sydney as a local show for me. It's in my state, so I'm based in New South Wales, Hunter Valley. Sydney is only about 2 hours drive. So I'll be doing Sydney Knife Show, but then after that, I'll be taking kind of break from doing all the shows available, because last year I did the Canberra show, I did the Brisbane show, I did the Perth show, I did the Blade, I did Sydney. So I tried to do as many shows as I could in my first year, but this year, well, actually not this year, like 2020 onwards, I'll be doing only 3 shows a year. That will be Sydney show, Blade, either Perth show, or maybe if we can, well, maybe we're looking at doing the Paris show, so we can say it's a knife show, it's a knife trip.
Yeah,
write it off the.
Well,
yeah, wife wants me to do the Paris show. Okay, she wants to go to Paris, but it makes more sense for us to actually go to Perth.
Yeah, I'm doing the Paris show this year as a walkthrough, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, I do Blade show, but I do Blade show as a Paragon agent. So I go there for the kilns and spruik the virtues of the new Paragon kilns, which are outstanding. But yeah, like I talk so much at Blade. By the Sunday, I had nothing left at all. I couldn't speak. I had no voice left. It was an unbelievable show. It really is. When you go to Sydney, it's a great show. It's a big show. It's great. I'm not belittling it. Don't get me wrong, but nothing can compare to the sheer numbers that they generate in America. And I liken it like this to the Americans. Australia has about roughly the same population as Florida. All right. In the same land masses as the continental USA without Alaska. So the population density out here is a lot less. And when you really go to somewhere like Atlanta, I don't know how many people are in Georgia in that particular state. I'll probably pull it up pretty quick. But it'll be more than the whole of Australia. How many do you reckon? Let's Google it because, save our population of GA. Georgia, that's right, isn't it? There's only 10.5 million in Georgia. So that's but if you included South Carolina, Alabama, and the states around it, Florida's 21 million, Alabama's 5 million. So just in that region of the 3 states there, you're looking at 35 million there, about 36 million. Where in Australia we're down around 25. You just can't compete with that kind of population density, in Australia where we've got basically the same landmass.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Hey, one show that I'm not real sure we've spoken a lot about or mentioned much, and it's one of my favourites in the Australian show circuit, is Adelaide.
Yeah, Adelaide's coming up too. We've got to give it a big shout out to Peter Bald and the Adelaide Knife Show. Yeah, absolutely, mate.
Absolutely. Adelaide,
great show.
Adelaide for me, Adelaide show for me, I don't know, there's just something about it. It's I guess you'd class as a boutique show. You got 30 tables or 30 makers there. But there's just something about the atmosphere at the Adelaide show between the makers especially that makes it, a really cool social show to go to. And yet they still get, a decent number of punters through the door. A decent number of sales happen at that show. I didn't make it last year because I just couldn't make it last year with Blade and everything else that happened. But I'm really going to sort of hopefully get down there this year because I really missed not being down there.
Yeah, true story, mate. Adelaide's a fantastic show. I think it's the longest running knife show in Australia. Been running for over 20 years. Could be 25. I don't really know anyway, but to be honest, it's absolutely sensational show. And as you said, it's more about the social aspect, sitting there in the Aqaba Hotel, which over recent years it's kind of changed a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's not quite.
No, I've noticed. Yeah.
It's not quite what it was a few years ago, and I think they've got this new live music going on downstairs in the bar, and you can't sit and talk quite as easily. I mean, it's good for the other people, obviously, but back in the years gone by, we used to basically just commandeer the bar, and if you weren't a knife maker in the bar, you'd be talking to a knife maker. So, we've been Gamaco have taken to hiring the entertainment suite upstairs, so we can so we'd have a bit of a conversation. Yeah,
there were some pictures from last year, right? Corner, was it who was it on the table with the tons of booze bottles right next to him? Was it Phil?
No, that was Dave. Yeah, on the
Dave,
table,
right.
And then there was the year before where he was under a plant pot or something. Yeah, there's been a few. Dave's well known for enjoying a good time, and top bloke. Dave's one of our ex-employees. Very sadly left the company to. Sad for us, not sad for him. Very sadly left the company to take on his dream of being a full-time knife maker, and we wish him all the best and talk to him regularly. So, yeah, great guy. So a shout out to Bat Country Forge. Look him up. He's still around. So all those guys that Dave helped over the years, you can follow him around on that batcountryforge.com.au. I think it is, and his Instagram's the same. So, yeah, really great guy, and barrel of laughs, mate. Barrel of laughs. Yeah, Adelaide's it's a fun show. I don't know. I just think it's changed, Kev. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, no, the show is, I think the show is the same. but the venue is changing, which then obviously impacts the dynamics of everyone going there. But like I said, it's one of my favourite shows to get on for that social side of things. So I'll try and get my ass down there this year.
Yeah, no, it's a nice little show. It's well supported. It's from a maker's perspective, it's not an expensive show to attend. There's cheap accommodation rates in hotels surrounding where it's held, and there's a social dinner that last year was held at a restaurant. That was funny. As Peter was a bit devastated. He'd gone to a lot of trouble to organise the meal, and we had 3 tables of knife makers, and we were all there for a conversation. And this restaurant, people don't. You can talk about this probably in hospitality. People don't give a fucking thought to acoustics. This restaurant had all concrete walls, no furniture, and it was packed, and you couldn't hear anything. In fact, at one point, Peter bawled. He's not a big man, but he stood up. I don't know if many people noticed. And he yelled at the top of his lungs. I don't know if I should repeat this, but it doesn't matter anyway. Would you all kindly shut the fuck up? The funny thing about that was that it was so loud, the people in the table next to us didn't even hear him. I heard him because I was sitting beside him, but it didn't make any difference. The restaurant was incredibly loud, and it really detracted from it. The year before, we had it at a little Chinese restaurant down the road, which had only 2 tables, and we took over the joint and had a fantastic night. And but it's one of those things that you can't plan for. But Mert, acoustics in hospitality, it's got to be something worthy of people taking note of.
Yes, technically yes, but the bosses will look at the bottom line and how much do you want to spend in interior. I'll just put nothing. It'll be fine. Call it modern. Done. Wow. That's unfortunately how it goes. But you know what? I was really surprised last year in terms of the local shows. I was very pleasantly surprised from the Perth show. Apparently, this was the second time they did the Perth show. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. The first Perth show was run many years ago by Keith Spencer. And
and this was the second year, I was told, and it was great. And we had a great turnout from the crowd. And it was also, the location was great as well. So we were in the historic Fremantle prison. I mean, think about it. You're in the prison selling shanks, selling shears. What
could go wrong?
what could go wrong?
Oh, it was fantastic. And it was, I went there as well, and totally amazing show. And the funny thing about it was we did cop some, that is the Knife Art Association and the show page did cop some negative feedback on Facebook, some 1-star reviews, which we responded to appropriately. The lady in question said, "We drove 45 minutes to attend, went out the back room, went past all of the displays in 5 minutes. What a waste of $10, which was the entry fee." And I considered it for a minute, and I was sitting with a well-known Sydney collector of knives, and I've just been talking to him, so it was quite fitting that I responded. And on the Knife Art Association page to this particular person, I said, "Oh, it's interesting because I'm sitting with a collector who drove all the way from Sydney to attend the Perth show and has spent 2 days talking and buying knives from the local artisans that you brushed past." And I made a few other comments along the same sort of lines, and she removed a comment. I didn't delete it, so I just thought, that's just a perspective thing. There's people out there that really don't appreciate what we do, and I don't know why they even come. If you're not into knives, don't come. I mean, the amount of people that I spoke to at Perth that were just blown away and absolutely amazed about what people were making locally and what people had brought from the other side, like people like Mert that would come over from Sydney and to exhibit their wares. And I just got such an overwhelmingly positive response. It was quite incredible. So I have to agree. Perth was right up there in my top favourite knife shows, and that location there in Fremantle, which I believe they'll be moving it next year because it isn't big enough. It didn't really that was the one drawback, I think, was that room was pretty full, Mert.
It was full, but we weren't expecting a 2,500 over 2 days. If we did 2,200 or 2,500.
We were absolutely not expecting the numbers that we got there. Yeah, we were expecting, when you put things in perspective, Melbourne and Perth both pull a crowd of around 600, 800, something like that. So we were expecting somewhere in that vicinity. We got over 2,000 people, and that went for both Perth and Brisbane.
Yeah.
Quite an incredible turnout, and just really a standout job by the Knife Art Association in getting that up and running.
Yeah, absolutely. Both shows, both new shows. The people in the background that don't ever get seen, absolutely fundamental in that shit getting organised. So good on them.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Brisbane was the only show that I've ever missed in Australia since 2013. I've been to every show except Brisbane, and that was because, for whatever reason, in the committee of the Knife Art Association, for whatever reason, we thought it was a good idea to have Perth 2 weeks, then Brisbane 2 weeks, then the symposium. 3 of our events within 2 weeks of each other, and it was a question of my my marriage or my life. I had to I had to step down from the Brisbane show, so I had a break and could attend the other 2. But I'll be there next year with bells on, hopefully. I don't know about the bells, but I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be most likely doing the Perth. It was fun.
It was good.
What do you think, Kev? Kev, you think you'll be there this year?
Not sure. I got to see how things go.
Okay.
Come on, mate.
I got a pretty.
I smell a road trip.
I got a pretty full. Yeah, I got a pretty full plate with knife making this year. So.
Well, some people are aware. Speaking of road trips, Kev, it's probably not as funny as you might think. I mean, we've got the Gamaco truck now, and you and I have done the odd road trip together. And the Gamaco truck is over here, and it's a 3-day drive. Could be fun, mate.
Keep me posted.
Yeah, could be
I'm
fun.
not saying I won't do that.
So,
what was the Priscilla? What was the thing at the desert? Priscilla, the
Priscilla Queen of the You idiot.
I'm not sure where you're going with that, Mert.
Oh, nowhere.
I can just imagine Kev in all his glory on a throne on top of the Gamaco truck. Yeah.
With a golden cape flowing behind me, that could be interesting.
Well, you said that, not me. Yeah. But all power to you, man.
Yeah. All right. So next podcast, we'll try and cover a little bit more of the Australian knife making history. We'll, Mert and Corin and myself will have a bit of a talk about, maybe try and single out a prominent maker from the past, and we'll have a bit of a chat about that. Always good to sort of dig deep into the past, and that'd be good. We'll have it up on our podcast. What's our podcast called again?
Knife making in the nude.
Knifemaking down under.
Down under.
Well, that's suitable. That's suitable. I mean, I'm in the nude. That works well.
You too,
right?
Well, it's hot.
The awkward thing is I'm sitting in my car out in my driveway.
Fair enough. That's the only quiet place.
Yep.
No, it should be good. So Instagram, we'll get a Knife Making Down Under Instagram page up and running, and we'll post some content up there. Anyone that wants to contact us, you've either got Mert, Tansu Knives, you've got Kev's Forge, you've got Nerock at Gamaco. We'll have our Instagram page up and running. If you want to send us a message, do so by any of those avenues. If you've got questions about things or you want different content on here, just hit us up, and we'll try and make this podcast what you guys want to hear.
Yeah, it sounds
Don't
great.
forget to subscribe.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't forget to subscribe. Yeah.
Yeah, listen to us every week. Well, how bad can it be, right?
Yeah. What's our podcast called again?
Knife making down under.
Have a good one,
Knifemaking
fellas.
Down Under.
Have a good one, everyone.
Righto.
Thank you for listening. Bye.
Thanks
guys.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.